The Zambezi River is an important geological feature. The Zambezi originates in the Congo in the northwest of this map, and it flows into Mozambique and into the Indian Ocean. The Luangwa is an important tributary, and it comes down from the north, basically along the Mozambique border. We're going to be staying at Mfue on the Luangwa River in the north and at Old Mondoro, which is on the Zambezi. For now, we're going to be focusing on Old Mondoro on the Zambezi River. The Zambezi in this particular stretch lies between two lakes. Old Mondoro is on the north side of the Zambezi River in Zambia. The south side of the river is Zimbabwe, and to the east is Mozambique. The Luangwa River runs along the border with Mozambique and joins the Zambezi River just before the eastern lake is formed. We're at Old Mondoro on the Zambezi River. I'm told that the locals use the word Mondoro to mean lion. Although this place doesn't have a lot of lions, it has mostly elephants and buffalo and lots of other herbivores. This is my tent at Old Mondoro. One of the things that you're probably going to notice is that to the left there is a large lagoon. This is actually a channel off of the Zambezi River, and we'll be getting back to that later. This is my front porch, so to speak, and the tent, you can see the whole side of it is open. And I was a little bit disturbed by that because this place is surrounded by baboons. And I've never known baboons to leave things alone in a tent where they can possibly get in. So I asked what kept the baboons out here, and the people that were running the place simply said the baboons had never discovered any reason to go into the tent, that they were a little bit afraid that it might be a trap. But I've never known baboons to have that concern. These next video clips were taken from inside the camp, many of them directly off of my front porch, which you just saw. These boys that you're looking at are Cape buffalo. Cape buffalo are one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. They kill fairly large numbers of people every year. These boys were on their best behavior in camp, however. Here's a close-up of that channel that's behind my tent. One of the things that you see is that it is choked with some vegetation. That vegetation is water hyacinth. Water hyacinth is not native to Africa. It's native to South America. But I found it all over the world. You can find it just about any place where it doesn't freeze. Water hyacinth may not be native to Africa, but that doesn't mean that the animals haven't gotten rather fond of it. Virtually everything comes down to this channel to get a bit of salad from the salad bar, and the water hyacinth seems to be very popular. You can tell that this shot of the channel was taken from my bathroom, and you can also see that even the largest animals in Africa seem to like to come down to my backyard. Now, when it becomes morning, it's breakfast time, and breakfast at a safari camp needs a campfire and some cook pots on the fire. And everybody comes in. Everybody doesn't include just the tourists, though. Occasionally you'll get some wildlife that drops by. After breakfast, you go out for your game drive, in which you try to find wildlife, although I'm not sure why you even bothered to leave the camp. But this was something I didn't see in camp. Those are wild dogs in the background. Now, I've never seen wild dogs before. This pack is something that is brand new to me. However, The downside of this pack and all of the packs that I saw was that they had no puppies. Curiously enough, the lead dog here seems to have a limp. In the past, at least, wild dog packs have been extremely rare, at least in the recent past. One of the problems with wild dogs is that they are susceptible to all the diseases that any domestic dog might possibly pick up. And with the proliferation of domesticated dogs and therefore domesticated dog diseases in Africa, the wild dogs have been hard hit. Something that is nearly impervious to decline is the Cape buffalo. Almost nothing seems to bother it too much, although there are some diseases that it can catch, diseases that cattle have. It takes a good-sized pride of experienced lions, or at least quite large lions, to take down a good-sized Cape buffalo, and the buffalo do tend to protect themselves, to mutually protect themselves. This particular herd was a pretty good size. We figure its population was about 327. Now we came to that conclusion by counting the legs and dividing by 4. One of the prettiest things that you're likely to see in Africa is the lilac-crested roller. Now this roller is especially beautiful when its feathers are caught in flight in the sun. So pay close attention. I think you'll see something pretty striking. One thing you can tell about baboons is the age of the baby, the rough age at least. If it's a very, very young baby, it'll cling to the bottom of its mother as mom walks along. When he's a little bit older, he'll ride jockey style on the back. The young ladies among these impala, on the other hand, are all very, very pregnant. They all drop their children at the same time, and they drop it just at the time when the rain's begun. The rains are scheduled to begin any time now, and we can expect to see young impala coming up shortly. The curious thing about warthogs is that they will often feed while kneeling down. The reason for that is because their neck is so short. They have difficulty actually reaching the low grass that they like to feed on. I would think that this would cause them a considerable problem with predators, but apparently it's not insurmountable. Everyone likes to view zebra. You think of them as horses, but in my opinion, they're a little bit more like donkeys. In any event, these zebra are all very, very nervous, and they're running at the mere sight of a vehicle some distance away. It's curious that they're quite that nervous. Also, there aren't very many zebra in the neighborhood, and a lot of animals like to have a mixed herd. Zebra, for example, often like to be around animals that can smell well because the zebras see pretty well and they complement each other. It looks to me like these nervous zebra are even making other animals a little bit nervous. The Cape buffalo, for example, almost always is not terribly shy. But with the shy zebra being around, apparently it's got the Cape buffalo a little bit upset. They're loping along at a pretty good speed. This old guy is 8 years old and well past his prime, but in his case, his problem is not just his age, it's also the mileage that he's put on. He's had a tough, tough life, and you can see that in his face. His name is Snare, and the reason for that is because a number of years ago he was caught in a snare. Now, he freed him, but in doing so, he caused enough damage that he needed medical care to make it, and they brought in a vet to give him some help. Nowadays, he no longer controls a pride. He couldn't defend one if he had to. Elephants are something that Zambezi has in spades. There are plenty of elephants around. The herds all look quite healthy, and they have quite a number of calves. A number of years ago, there were in this area an overpopulation of elephants, and the elephants were destroying the forest. That's no longer the case because Zambezi turned to a cull, a legal cull of the elephants. Unfortunately, the cull was a little bit too extensive. You see, as the cull culling of elephants occurred, the poachers were doing the same thing under the fog of doing legitimate hunting. The result of that was the elephant populations absolutely crashed. And when it crashed, the government quickly realized it made a mistake. And what they did was to reverse the policy on legal hunting. And they pretty restricted the poaching. And the elephants are coming back pretty rapidly now. A lot of people are appalled by elephant culling, but when elephants get to be too much for the environment, something has to be done. And you can't put an elephant herd in an envelope and ship it off to a park where they don't have enough elephants. So, there just aren't many ideal alternatives to culling. Elephants are also one of those things that tourists always look for. They're very impressive. They're also very dangerous. In fact, in this neighborhood, they seem to be the most dangerous animals. In some places, it's hippos. But hippos are usually only aggressive when the water is scarce. And the Zambezi River helps to alleviate that as a problem. The other thing that's extremely dangerous is crocodiles. But this area doesn't seem to have very many crocodiles. So if you're going to get into trouble here, it's likely to be elephants. Now, one of the things that you probably noticed about these elephants is that they don't have big tusks. This is a matriarchal herd with a baby, but African elephants, even female elephants, do have tusks. However, poaching has generally had the effect of reducing the size of the tusks that you're getting nowadays on even African elephants, because all the big tuskers are being taken out or have been taken out of the gene pool. Some elephants, even male African elephants, don't have tusks. And when you see a tuskless elephant, you need to keep in mind they tend to be super aggressive. It's as though the elephant felt that it needed to compensate for the fact that it didn't have tusks by being super aggressive. In effect, a tuskless male elephant, you might say, has something of a Napoleon complex. He needs to overcompensate by his behavior. by the way, a baby elephant that will fit under its mother's belly conveniently is less than a year old. That allows the mother to stand over the baby and give it extra protection. The baby doesn't need to have that size in order to be able to suckle. His trunk will allow him to suckle long after he's over a year old. So that's not a problem. Now, one of the things that you just kind of naturally notice as you drive through an area like this is that they have a lot of termite mounds. It's those large mounds that you see every once in a while at the side of the road. There are a fair number of termites here, and the termite mounds are high up off the ground in order to provide ventilation for the termites. As a matter of fact, the hotter the climate is, the taller the termites try to build their mound in order to provide air conditioning. In a sense, it's the termites that brought me here. Well, indirectly. What I'm really looking for is termite eaters. There are two animals, the pangolin and the aardvark, that I'd like to see, and I've never seen either of them in the wild. One of the reasons that I came to Zambia was because I found a lodge, Old Mandoro, on the Zambezi River, which has something of a reputation for aardvark and pangolin. Now, if you've seen previous versions of my movies, you probably know I've been looking for pangolin for about 10 years. And they're very, very hard to find. A professional guide is likely to see one or two or three in his lifetime. As a matter of fact, the first time that I went to Botswana, the guide asked all of the tourists in the group what they would like to see. And of course, everyone says something like elephant, lion, leopard, giraffe. But when he came to me, I said pangolin. And he had to admit that in his entire life, and he had been guiding for a long time, he had only seen one pangolin in the wild. So it's a long shot, but we're going to be looking. In any event, this is what the aardvark looks like.
Hello there. Let me introduce myself. I'm an aardvark. I eat ants for a living. I'm a functional creation. Check the profile. That's a profile. And the mouth. Ever see a mouth like that? To show you how it works, just suppose an ant was hiding down behind that hill. I'm an anteater, not a fish eater.
Well, of course, it doesn't look exactly like that. It's generally recognized as something that looks a little bit piggy in the face, and it's got kind of a rat's tail and a big rump. In any event, this animal also has been depicted in the cartoon series Ice Age. Now there, it happened to have a heavy fur coat. But today, there's only one species of aardvark, and it's only found in Africa, and it does not have a coat. Now, the aardvark is really an interesting animal, and really quite unique. Aardvark is Afrikaans. It means earth pig. Originally, it was classified along with sloths and armadillos and anteaters, and that makes a certain amount of sense because the aardvark is itself an anteater. But nowadays, it's classified, it's got its own family, and there's only one in this family. It's got its own genus. There's only one in the genus, and it's got its own species. There's only one species, and it's exclusively in Africa. Nevertheless, the aardvark has been around for a long time, about 60 million years for as far as we can tell, and that means they go back to the time of the dinosaurs. What really makes aardvarks interesting and unique and different from virtually all other mammals is that it has tubular teeth. There's no dentin in the teeth, and there's a pulp cavity that moves all the way up and down through the tooth. That kind of tubular teeth makes the aardvark different from anything else on the planet. For the most part, aardvarks live down in burrows during the day. They dig the burrows themselves. In fact, they dig so many burrows, many animals will use those burrows over a long period of time. They can dig so fast that they can actually dig faster than a man can with a shovel. Some of those burrows are said to be so big that a person could go down in them, and in some cases at least, it is reported that the person got lost while he was down in the burrow complex and died down in the burrow. This is your classic aardvark hole. An aardvark dug it out. He dug it out the same way that a dog would, throwing the dirt out between his rear legs. And this is the spoil. Now the aardvark is long gone, but as I understand it, a warthog has been using this den, at least occasionally. But there's a hole beyond the aardvark entrance that I want to show to you. Now there's a tunnel down there that leads back to the aardvark entrance. But this hole was not dug by an aardvark. Instead, what had happened was an elephant had stepped on the aardvark's tunnel and collapsed it in. And that's why there's no spoil around this particular entrance. Now, because the aardvark, and for that matter the pangolin, tend to be nocturnal, it's going to be difficult to find them except in the late evening, very early morning, or at night. Those are your prime times to go searching for them. And while we're searching for those animals, it's going to be other animals that we're likely to also bump into. Like, for example, this is a civet. It used to be called a civet cat usually, but it's not really a cat at all. Nevertheless, it is rather cat-like. To the extent possible, we're going to be using a spotlight covered with a red lens, and as long as my camera is shooting in regular light, it's going to pick up that red. But if I switch over to infrared, as I will, this light will appear to be white, although it's not. And what the red light has picked up now is a leopard cub. And the leopard cub is at the base of a tree. Now what we've done is we've gone around to the other side of the tree, and we're going to try to pick up the face of the cat so that he doesn't have his back to us all the time. The leopard's looking up the tree because he's planning on skedaddling home. After all, there are predators out tonight. For as far as Mom is concerned, well, she's out gathering up some groceries to bring home. Now I've switched to infrared, and this is by far the
I
best
got it.
footage I've ever gotten
got the
of a
jump.
bush baby. A bush baby is a primate, and they are nocturnal. And about the only time that you ever see them is you see eye shine usually in one bush jumping to another. You don't actually see the animal. This is extraordinarily clear. This is another common night creature. It's very much like
it.
the civet, but it's called a genet, and it's a smaller animal. Also, it is not a cat. I was at a camp one time where they had a pet genet. Keeping a pet genet is an awful lot like keeping a pet ferret. They're very active, very inquisitive, and it can be a little destructive. This is another civet. The civets and genets are most common. If you're wondering why I'm staying with this civet so long, it's because these are the best videos that I've gotten of civets and genets, and so I want to stay with them for a while. As you would expect, there's some hyena out tonight. Hyena have the greatest jaw pressure of any mammal. If you look to find something that has greater jaw pressure, try a crocodile. Now here's another bush baby, and this one is almost as clear as the first one that we saw. We're going to have to get the focus a little bit fixed here in just a second. Okay, he's not. Now here we have a giant eagle owl on the ground. He's got his back to us right now, but he'll turn around. Move your spotlight a little bit further away from him. That's fine. That's what I wanted. Now here's a real gem. I had seen honey badgers before. I saw two of them in the Kalahari, but I only saw the backs of the honey badgers going through the tall grass. I didn't see the whole honey badger, and worse yet, I didn't get a chance to video it. Here we can see the whole honey badger, and we've got the video. Well, once again, the pangolin did not show up. The aardvark, however, I did get, and I got him in his natural habitat. I have found the aardvark in its natural habitat. This is mine.
calm river. You understand me? Suppose a north wind should come up, what would you do?
I throw out an anchor.
If a west wind come up, what would you do?
I throw out another anchor.
And a south wind came up, what would you do then?
I throw out another anchor.
And an east wind blew up, what would you do?
I throw out another anchor.
Where are you getting all the anchors?
The same place you're getting all the wind.
Will you keep quiet?
Take it easy if you'd like to. You copy that? That's good.
This is my tent, and we're at Mfue on the Luangwa River. And we're specifically at a camp called Flat Dogs. I'll explain why the dogs are flat later. Flat Dogs Camp was originally located nearby, but not exactly on the current site. And it was named Flat Dogs because there had been a crocodile farm preceding the camp. And the crocodile is referred to as a flat dog in South Africa. Now, this didn't strike me as terribly surprising because in South America, the big caiman, the big crocodilian that's there, is called the black caiman. The slang term for it is the black dog. Apparently, crocodilians are dogs. This is the Mfue Bridge over the Luangwa River. In order to get into the national park from Flat Dogs, you have to cross this bridge. And before you cross that bridge, you have to go through the national park's gate. The gate tells you a little bit of information about the size of the park. It gives it to you in kilometers, square kilometers, but if you cut those numbers in half, that'll give you roughly the number of square miles. We're talking about some 5,000 square miles of national park. That brings you up to the bridge. From the bridge, it's possible to see the Luangwa River, and you can see it's a substantial river. It's a continuous river. It's not an intermittent stream. And it is full of animals. Specifically, it's full of hippopotamus. And where there are hippopotamus, and there may be as many as 200 of them out there at the bridge, there are fish, because fish are attracted by the hippo dung. Where there are fish, there are crocodiles, and there are a few crocodiles here. There are two kinds of crocodile in this neighborhood, the slender crocodile and the Nile crocodile. The Nile crocodile is famously dangerous, and these crocodiles are pretty good size. The absolute first thing that we saw in the park was a leopard cub. Now he's about 3/4 grown or so, but Mom is apparently out getting groceries, and he's sunning himself on a termite mound which is attached to a tree, and when he gets spooked, he'll go up the tree, of course.
Generally, he's looking youngish from the sitting position.
Different of the one this morning.
Yeah,
This one
yeah.
is in the sun. The other one is it was in the
Yeah.
shade, the dark.
Now this young gentleman looks absolutely magnificent, but it's not very long before he heads up the tree. The leopard's nickname is the Prince of Darkness, and when the Prince of Darkness is spotted, he does like to change his location.
That girl.
Now this next scene is a much more typical situation to see a leopard cub in. Unfortunately for photography purposes, he's in the shade, but he's every bit as clear as he was before. He's really not much further away.
Big mustache.
It wasn't very long before we discovered there was a pack of wild dogs in this national park. The pack is roughly the same size as the pack we saw down on the Zambezi. And they happen to have taken up a temporary residence in a dry river bed. Well, it's mostly dry anyway. And in order to get these pictures, the guide took our safari vehicle out on this dry riverbed, which is basically sand. Now the problem, as we're going to discover, is that our guide really doesn't know very much about how to drive in a dry riverbed filled with sand. It turns out that driving onto the sand and getting up close to the dogs was a lot easier than getting back out of the riverbed. Over a period of time, perhaps as many as half a dozen safari vehicles dropped by to either watch us in our dilemma with the sand, photograph us, or to help us try to get out of the sand trap. Oh well, there's not too much point in spending very much time here in the sand trap. Let's go on to something else and we'll come back later and see if we manage to get out. These pretty little birds are called carmine bee eaters. Carmine is, of course, the color that it's the red part of the bird, and bee eater is basically what the bird does. They build warrens of little nests in the side of riverbanks. They always do that. I've never seen them build them anyplace else. And there they raise their chicks. And they're always very busy flying in and out. Usually they'll be bringing back food to the nest. In this case, we found something a little disturbing. There is a dragon in one of the holes. The monitor lizard attacks these birds routinely and destroys the chicks and the eggs. Now, up until a year or two ago, giraffe were always considered to be a single species divided into 8 subspecies. Now some DNA testing has been done, and it's been decided that the giraffe are actually 4 specific species, and then there are 4 additional subspecies to those. These particular giraffe are called Thornycroft giraffe, and they're a type of Maasai giraffe. Now these 2 giraffe are doing what is generally called necking, but this kind of necking will give you a different definition of the term. Basically what they're doing is they're competing. Now watch as one of these giraffes is going to pick up the leg of the other and attempt to throw him onto the ground. It's entirely possible that if that were to occur, it would kill the opposing giraffe, because he may not be able to get back up again. But what they're going to use is their head for a battering ram at the end of that long neck. And in order to show dominance, they're going to hit each other repeatedly. And giraffe can get killed doing this or badly injured. Now, when you look at a giraffe, you always assume that the giraffe has a long neck so that it can reach foliage high in the trees. But there is an alternate theory on that long neck, and that is the long neck gives that battering ram extra leverage when it hits the opposing giraffe. Now let's go back to our safari vehicle stuck in the sand out in the riverbed and see if we've made any progress. Well, this is actually less productive than it appears because the vehicle bogged down in the sand just after it got outside the frame that you saw. So let's go and take a look at lions. This particular male lion's name is Ginger, and he's the top cat in his pride. His brother's name is Garlic. And the 2 of them recently just happened to take over this particular pride. Garlic and Ginger both are very, very fond of each other. They're either brothers or half-brothers at least. And they've been together all their lives. They're probably about the same age. If they're brothers, of course, the ages are identical. These boys are the rock stars of this particular national park. They're used to having paparazzi around them, and they don't mind having their pictures taken at all. Needless to say, these male lions have been doing what male lions are supposed to do. They have been very busy with the ladies, and there are two brand new cubs. In fact, these cubs are so new that they haven't been introduced to the pride yet. They're only a couple of weeks at the most old right now, and their mother is an old experienced hand, so they should have no difficulty. Mom has hidden those two cubs away from the pride, and so we went out looking for them and found them. As a matter of fact, everybody in the park was looking for them, so we kept a pretty close track of where they were at. It's turning into evening now. Mom's come back to probably to nurse the cubs, and the cubs are out in the open now. Earlier in the day, they were undercover. Earlier in the day, Mom had told the cubs not to come out and to stay hidden in their little hiding place, and they did. But when Mom came out, of course, when Mom appeared, the cubs came out, and now the cubs are no longer afraid of the safari vehicles. They're having no trouble at all facing us down. These things look like you could just walk over and pick them up and pet them. But Mom probably would object, and for that matter, so would the kittens. Now you can clearly see both of the little fur balls, and Mom, of course. Well, it's moving on into night, and the night creatures are beginning to come out. This happens to be a chameleon. Africa has two species of chameleon. Most of the chameleon species in the world are on the island of Madagascar, however. So if you want to see chameleons, Madagascar is usually the place to go. This is something that we ran across with regularity. We must have seen 6 or 8 leopards at night, and this is your normal reaction of a leopard. As soon as he knows he's spotted, he moves out of the light and goes away.
It's moving.
Yes, I know it's moving.
So are we.
But this next leopard's reaction is entirely different. I'm not sure just exactly why. We were using a red filtered light and occasionally a white light at the same time. But he seems extremely calm and quite willing to be a poser. In fact, he seems to be actually curious about the light, and I think that perhaps he's studying what's going on to try to figure it out. I'm sure that I've never seen a leopard that was this calm and collected in this kind of situation where he's in the light at night. They're almost always nervous about the light.
You able to get photos?
Now look at this. He's actually so calm and so secure in the light that he's actually laying down. All that movement, noise, and light, and the cat still doesn't react to it. I've never seen anything like this. Some of the most compelling stories about Africa are about man-eating lions. In the 1890s, there were a pair of maneless male man-eating lions, which were called The Ghost in the Darkness. The movie that was made, The Ghost in the Darkness, is based on those lions. And the person that killed them was a railway engineer, a Colonel John Patterson. But lion attacks in Victorian times are not the only times that you hear about lion attacks. A century later, in the 1990s, 1991 specifically, in July, there was a man-eating lion here at Mfuwe. At least one man-eating lion here at Mfuwe. There may have been a couple of more, but one in particular. This one in July attacked two boys. One was killed, the other one escaped. And immediately a bait was put out to try to catch the lion, but to no avail. And then about a month later, there was another attack. This one wasn't two small children going out on the highway. It was of a woman at her home. Now, she was mentally impaired, but the door had been broken through. Now, it happens that I ran into someone who knows about that attack. Now, he's my guide here. His name is Malawa. And Malama was about 15 years old at the time of the attack. We're at Mfume, and the specific place that we're at is the Flat Dogs Camp. And this is my guide, Malama. And where were you at in 1991?
In 1991, I was within Mfuwe in a village called Element Village. I possibly don't even know where my grandparents got this English name as Element Village.
Element Village?
Element Village. That's the village I'm actually still living up to date.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you, in 1991, there was a man-eating lion in this area, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Tell me about the lion.
Of course, because most of the sightings, whoever saw the lions saw them or saw it in the night. Therefore, it was so difficult for an ordinary person to know whether it was a female or a lion, a male lion. Yeah. Closer to my village, that's where we heard what we saw as this woman who was killed, and possibly this woman was slightly had a mental problem.
Mm.
Yeah. And that morning, when we learned of the woman being taken, we thought she was just killed and left.
Uh-huh.
But personally, I was about 15 years old then.
15.
15.
Uh-huh.
We went to the house.
Mm-hmm.
I remember very, very well, peeped into the house, and what we saw was where she was sleeping was nicely laid,
Uh-huh.
which indicated that the woman might have been outside the house at the time when the lion was stalking her.
Uh-huh.
And when she was like just getting into the house, because what happened was halfway the door was destroyed. Destroyed. You know, the door was a packed maize stalk.
Oh.
It was not a timber door.
It wasn't a heavy door.
It wasn't a heavy door.
Uh-huh.
And that was a traditional door in the villages then.
Mm-hmm.
So halfway, that's where the door was broken. So most people thought that the woman was outside the house, and when maybe she saw the lion very close up, that's when she thought of retreating by getting into the house.
Yes.
Which was too late for her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She was possibly then, I think in late 40s, early 50s at the time she was killed. So she couldn't possibly run faster enough to get into the house. That is why where she was sleeping was nicely laid down. The door shutter was just a small part broken, possibly where or when she was fighting with the lion. So that's how she was put out of the house.
I've heard that. Is there anything else that you can remember about the lion that you would like to tell us?
Well, anything, of course, it had a mixed feeling that time. And remember, you know, we were in a community that had a huge mix of illiterate and literate people. Some people believed that that was just a made lion.
Uh-huh.
Yes, some people through practicing witchcraft made the lion.
Yeah.
That's what most, oldish people believed.
Uh-huh.
And that is why when we were told that there are people on the ground hunting the lion, we were told the other morning that they saw the lion, but they didn't kill it because they just saw one lion that night, and the hunters wanted to see all of them together before they decide, before they try and eradicate them. Then because it was just one on that night, a lot of oldish people said it's impossible to kill the lion because the lion knew that he was hunted and just managed to blind the hunters and disappear. Yeah. But then later on, after some maybe 2 days, we were told that the lion was killed. Personally, I went to school that day when they killed the lion because they drove it somewhere nearby the villages to make sure that they tell people, to make sure that they instill
So that
confidence in
everyone knew
people
that the lion was
has
dead.
been killed.
Yes.
I missed that I was in school. By the time I came, the news was spread out, and we were happy we could go back to our daily activities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for talking to me.
That's a pleasure.
The second attack, there was a third attack, and once again, this was a boy walking around. But in this particular case, he was walking around behind a park ranger station. And when the lion attacked him, the park ranger discovered the attack very quickly, ran out and shot, but he, of course, didn't kill the lion, he just scared it away. The boy was badly injured. As a matter of fact, he was hospitalized the next day, but he died of his injuries. So that means that there's a witness to this particular attack, a credible witness, the park ranger. And the park ranger saw that it was a maneless lion, and therefore he assumed it was female. In fact, of course, they discovered later on it was a maneless male lion. set out traps after each one of these, called in professional hunters, and tried very, very hard to get rid of the lion. But there were 3 more attacks that we know of. There were at least 6 documented attacks. The last attack is the one that is perhaps most interesting. And when it was going on, there was an American by the name of Wayne Hosek. He was boarding an airplane in Los Angeles. And he had a license to kill lions in Zambia. The 6th victim was an elderly woman who had been sitting in her doorway of her mud and wattle hut. She was drinking some beer at sunset and enjoying the breeze. Her neighbors had already barricaded themselves inside their homes, and she didn't see the male lion until it was too late, of course. When government scouts investigated the next day, they found blood-stained sand on the doorstep of her house and 7-inch paw prints that indicated a very large lion. Now, at this time, they left the area, but the lion returned to the scene of the crime. And in broad daylight, he pushed the door open to her house, and he seized a gunny sack that she had in her house that contained her laundry. And he carried the bag to the center of the small village. The lion dropped the bag, stood over it, and began to roar. Now that would be alarming at any time, but the lion's fearless domination amplified all the human fears and vulnerabilities, and he was identified as a sorcerer in the minds of the village elders. The lion continued to carry the closed bag about for several days, playing with it as a cat does with a dead mouse or catnip. Each day the villagers would encounter the bag at a different spot along the river beside the town. They were powerless and demoralized, and they sealed themselves in their houses until Wayne Hosek came. And so when he landed, he was invited to hunt this particular lion, and he did. And after a considerable amount of time, he and a park ranger were able to shoot at it. The park ranger only grazed the leg with his rifle, but Wayne killed it. Now, they didn't go out of their hide immediately after they shot the lion. And the reason, of course, is because they weren't certain the lion was dead, and you wouldn't want to go out immediately to investigate. But after a little while, they heard a gurgle, and that was the last of the lion, the Mfue lion. Although Hosek was from Los Angeles, he grew up in Chicago, and as a boy he went to the Field Museum in Chicago, and the Field Museum he knew was where the stuffed Ghost and Darkness were, the lions that had terrorized Kenya back in the 1890s. And so he arranged to have the body of the Mfue lion taken to the Chicago Field Museum, where it's on display today, and you can see it there. This inevitably brings up the question of why the Mfue lion, or any lion for that matter, becomes a man-eater. One of the theories is that the man-eater became a man-eater because people are easy to catch and fairly easy to eat. It's the injured animal theory, and usually that has something to do with the condition of the teeth and the jaw of the lion. And so because the Ghost and the Darkness and the Mfue lion are in the Field Museum, those skeletons could easily be investigated. And sure enough, the Mfue lion did have damage on the right side of his jaw. It looks like some large hooved animal probably kicked him in the jaw, and it never really healed properly. However, the investigation also showed that that accident had happened a long time before the Mfue lion started eating people. So it's questionable that the injury itself is a sufficient explanation for why he became a man-eater. Oh, by the way, the safari vehicle that I was riding in eventually does get out of the sand trap. And the impala mothers do start dropping their babies. And so all of a sudden, there are a large number of very young impala wandering around in the park. This impala baby is probably only a few hours old, but he's able to stand and run.
This may be the first car.
We are at Mfue Lodge. There's a particular reason why I wanted to come here. You see, this lodge was accidentally built on an old elephant trail. And the elephants have not given up the trail. In order to get to the fruiting trees, the mango trees, the elephants actually walk through the lobby. There's a matriarchal herd with young ones that do that, and there's also a bull elephant by the name of George that does that.
Elephants, powerful, unpredictable, deadly, considered to be one of the most powerful animals in Africa. But in South Luangwa, one herd is changing everything. Built over an ancient elephant path, Mfue Lodge is renowned for its bountiful mango tree, which attracts very big and unlikely guests. When the lodge was built, people didn't realize that the elephants had no intention of changing course. Every spring, when the fruits ripen, the entire herd lumbers through the reception to gorge themselves on the feast beyond. This year, Nathan, a wildlife cameraman, came to Mfue to film the spectacle.
I mean, this was an amazing experience to have these elephants coming through so close and almost, to an extent, so trusting.
But he had no idea that this would be a year like no other. A show of trust, both incredible and terrifying.
A matriarchal elephant with a brand new baby could probably be one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. With a youngster being so vulnerable to predators, she's incredibly protective. So when she brought this brand new baby, 2 weeks old, up through the reception, we were slightly concerned.
Nathan would normally never get this close to a newborn elephant in the wild, and they didn't know how dangerous the protective matriarch really is.
You felt very vulnerable with these huge animals. At the same time, we had to be really cautious of not getting into the wrong position. But there's this unbelievable sort of understanding from the elephants that they had encroached on a human area and knew that we were there.
A few weeks into the shoot, Wonky Tusk's uncanny trust in humans is confirmed beyond all doubt.
I mean, there's never any signs of sort of tension or haste.
Wonky Tusk and her family decide to stop in the middle of the lodge and wait while baby Wellington takes a nap. For wild elephants to be so at ease, surrounded by human beings, is almost unheard of.
Wow, that has got to be the ultimate safari experience. I've actually been coming for the last 3 or 4 years to this particular place, Mfue Lodge. And the reason for doing that is because there is this most wonderful annual spectacle, which is when a family of elephants actually walks through reception to get at these. And it's become almost a sort of an annual spectacle now for people to visit Mfue Lodge to see Wonky Tusk lead her family up the steps through reception. So it's an extraordinary scene, and I can't resist coming here every year to try and get better and better pictures, I hope, of that event.
Now, the chances are that if you hear about elephants and you hear that a building has been put on one of their old elephant trails and the elephants haven't given it up, you would assume that something would happen like happened in the movie Elephant Walk. Elizabeth Taylor plays in that, and it was a number of years ago, and Elizabeth Taylor was at the peak of her beauty, I think. As a matter of fact, I think the only time she looked better was in Ivanhoe. But in any event, this is a clip from Elephant Walk.
Ever since the day my father killed the mate of the big bull elephant, evil has hung over Elephant Walk. Our bungalow blocks the broad trail which the elephants centuries ago smashed through the jungle to get to the water. They still try to force their way through. Led by the vengeful big bull, they're a constant menace to our home and our lives. Like my father, I have defied them. How could I have so completely forgotten this ever-present danger when I went to England and met Ruth? That's the Elephant Walk where the place got its name. Before the governor built here, the elephants used to come down that track for centuries to get to the water.
They don't still try to come through, do they?
Elephants always remember. In the governor's time, a couple of them were killed in the argument. Perhaps it's revenge. Oh, don't worry, darling. That wall keeps them out. They try it from time to time, just out of stubbornness.
Now, assuming that Elizabeth Taylor isn't staying at the lodge, this is the path that the elephants ought to take. We're out in front of the lodge now. This is where most of the parking is, underneath that awning, that shade. And they should approach something like this in order to get into the lobby. If there's a lot of congestion out front, the elephants will be deterred from getting into the lobby. You can see that the roof on this is nice and high, so that most of the elephants are not going to have any trouble getting in. The steps are the big problem. The steps were not designed for elephant feet. It'll pass by in front of the reception desk and go through the lobby and come out the other side. Notice that the roof is a little bit low when they have to do their steps down. The problem here is mostly for George, the big bull elephant. When he goes through this way, he damages the roof sometimes. And this is the fruit tree. This is the mango tree. And you can see that it's quite tall. And the elephants, even with their trunks, cannot reach the mangoes. They're much too high up. They have to wait for the mangoes to drop to the ground. So the next question is, are there mangoes on the ground? And indeed there are. And that ought to attract the elephants in the near term. Now, I'm going to go from the lobby out to my room. They refer to it as a chalet. It's not a tent. I refer to it as a palazzo. It's a palace. It's probably one of the nicest places that I've ever stayed on safari. But it's not a regular room. You have to go up a wooden boardwalk. The entrance is actually on the second floor. It's kind of a tree house, if you will. So we're going to go up the ramp and head on in. My room is the crocodile, and it's pretty well protected. Now, that's a metal door. And this is partly to keep the baboons out. Baboons are a problem. This is actually the loft, and off of the loft there is a balcony. The good thing about the balcony is it tends to get shade pretty early in the morning. And from the balcony, you can see an extensive mud puddle. And all of the animals in this area treasure this mud puddle. They all come down here to drink or to wallow or to meet their friends or something. And down below the balcony, there's a porch off of the main part of the house. So let's continue now with my tour of the palazzo. Incidentally, there's a sink and toilet up on this level, but the main facilities are downstairs. That's another sink and toilet directly ahead of you, and a closet to the left. This is the main room. And the bathroom is off to this side. There's a tub and a shower both in there. And this is that porch that I told you about. Right now there's a little bit of baboon activity outside, but not much activity compared to the way that it usually is. Oh, and by the way, these rooms are air conditioned. At one time, in my backyard mud puddle, I counted 13 elephants. That doesn't include the warthogs and other things that were out there. In addition to the continuous showing of Animal Planet here at the lodge, there was also an opportunity to see a live performance by human beings. In this particular case, we're talking about real actors. And these people know their business. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be imitating some of the African animals. Some of the ones that you've just seen, as a matter of fact, may make an appearance.
Just wait, everybody, okay? Wait. Hey, I said wait. The honey badger. Wait. You see?
Yes.
It is removing honey from the tree stump.
Sure.
Yes. Oh, that comes again. Good. Now, the lesson from this is to always help your friends and share our wealth.
Uncle.
You wait. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm very sorry. You know, I like you so much. In fact, you are my best friend. Eh? Sorry. You know, I thought you were still a honey badger. Ah. Say it.
Okay, bye. Absolutely. Oh, wonderful. Hey, stop. What's that animal?
Oh, Kudu.
Kudu.
Yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You just take picture?
Yes.
Lots of players.
Absolutely. See?
Oh, where? It's a nice picture.
Yes, it's a nice picture.
Well.
On the first morning of my time at Mfuwe Lodge, I did not go on the morning game drive. I assumed that possibly the elephants would go through the lodge, and I didn't want to miss it, so I stayed around the grounds and was photographing things, and I happened to notice some elephants behind me headed up towards the lodge, and I figured this is my chance. So I hurried around the other way, and I got into the lodge before the elephants did and set up my tripod and had my camera going as well. So I've got two cameras going, the camcorder and the camera, and they're both doing video. And the result of that is I did get them walking through the lobby. The first one in is the leader. That's the matriarch. This is basically a female herd with offspring. And I'm behind the reception desk. That's what separates me from the elephants, and that's a traditional place to take up your position. The second elephant in, that's a little bit smaller than most of the others, that's Wellington. He's a teenager now. And there are a total of about 4 elephants in this particular group. And it only takes them a second to wander through. Now this is the other camera that I've got going at the same time. I'm standing back behind where that tripod is, and that of course is my camera that's taking the pictures of the elephants coming into the lobby. And you can see how close the elephants are to that tripod. They're virtually right on top of it. Now if you watch the littlest elephant, what you'll see is it's now behind the matriarch. In other words, the grandmother or mother of the elephant is sort of shielding the baby from everybody else. And they're getting ready to go down the stairs now. Now that the elephants have gone through the lobby, I've moved my camera and tripod, and so that's it now in position up along that brick wall, and we'll be able to see those pictures in a second. One of the things that everybody's struck by is that the elephants are very, very careful not to cause any damage as they go through. They're very mindful of the furniture and they don't disturb anything. That's more especially interesting when you understand that although they're getting along quite well with the tourists, the local farmers and these specific elephants have a running gun battle over produce. Of course, what the elephants are doing is simply picking up the fruit that has fallen from the tree. But where the trees are smaller, the elephants can pick the fruit right off the tree, and elephants will eat green mangoes, which means they can completely destroy a crop before the farmer can possibly get to it. As you can see, I'm not alone behind the reception desk. Just about everybody that's trying to get a good picture has crowded in there. These pictures were taken by the camcorder that's on the tripod. It only takes the elephants a few minutes to pick up the fallen fruit, and then they head out the back way down a slope towards that sort of dried riverbed that's got my mud puddle in it. Although this matriarchal herd is the one that's famous for walking the lobby, they're not the only ones that come to the tree. This next elephant is a big bull by the name of George. Now, George comes in the back way. That is a side door, actually. Now he has to go upstairs in order to get on that platform that he's at, and then he has to be able to figure out a way to get down to ground level. But the reason that he does that, and he doesn't go through the lobby, is largely because he's so tall that when he goes out the back, he has a tendency to hit the roof with his head and damage the roof. And he doesn't really want to do that, so he tries to come in such a way so that he doesn't have to go through the lobby. George's height does have one major advantage, and that is he's tall enough to be able to reach some of the fruit that has fallen on the roof and has not made it down to the ground. Now George goes out the same side door that he came in, and that doesn't mean that he doesn't have to negotiate steps and things like that, but at least he's not hitting his head on the roof, and he picks up a little salad on his way out. Eventually, George goes out the same way that the matriarchal herd does, down the slope and into the little river valley. The 12th of November was my last safari day, and as a matter of fact, I had to clear the lodge on that day and head out towards the airport. And I collected up my luggage and put it into the bus, and I was sitting outside the lodge in the bus when a matriarchal herd came through the lobby from the mango tree towards me out in the parking lot. And so I got the herd going into the lobby and coming back out of the lobby. And because it was my last day on the 12th of November, It happens that it was my birthday, so I'm counting this as my birthday present from the elephants. I'm figuring that going downstairs is a lot harder for the elephants than going up the stairs. And neither one of them are terribly convenient because the stairs are simply not the right size. And of course, if you're a four-legged animal, they're not really designed for you. As soon as she gets down the stairs, she starts looking around. And I think she's looking around for any dangerous predators. This elephant, the big one, is not terribly vulnerable. And for that matter, the youngster is big enough to be able to take care of itself probably, but she's still a little nervous. Tourists, on the other hand, appear to be entirely benign personages.